everyone, I'm your host, Boston Antunez.
And I'm your co-host, Moana Poyer.
And welcome to season 2 of the Theater Project.
So we wanted to launch off our second season with something exciting and sentimental to us. So we are bringing together our close friends and alumni of the City of Temecula Youth Musical Theater and a special 2-part series, with this being the first.
With that being said, let's go ahead and introduce everybody. First up, we have the Artistic Director of BA in Crutchy and Newsies. Please welcome Sean Barnett.
Hello.
Yay! All right. Second up, we have my LeFou in Beauty and the Beast, Faith Fenway. Hi, Faith. Next up, we have Mrs. Peterson and Bye Bye Birdie, Gabby Ferreras. Yay. And lastly, here's Nelius Mary Poppins and a Wickersham brother and Susa Cole Alcacer. Hi, Cole.
Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us. We are so excited to have this little mini reunion to catch up and share our memories of growing up in youth theater together. So we thought we would start off by asking everyone, how did you get your start in City of Temecula Youth Musical Theater?
Well, I didn't really start doing theater over there willingly. It was something that my mom, who at the time, who was the manager of the Old Town Temecula Community Theater, which is the venue that we performed all of our shows at, was at. And I mean, I went around all the sports as a kid, and then one day she decided to put me in a production of Peter Pan Jr. And as you know, as cheesy as this line is, it literally changed my life forever. Like, this wouldn't exist if it wasn't for that and the program that ensued.
Well, I started doing theater. The person who's the director, Jennifer Stewart, I was in middle school at the time when I joined, and she also did the middle school productions at the school I went to. And I had no idea that like community theater was a thing at all. I was just like, oh, it's just a thing in school you do. And then she introduced me to it, and then I fell in love and I met all these people. So, yeah.
Hello. I have a very similar story to Faith. I met Jennifer Stewart when I was in 6th grade, and then in 8th grade, I auditioned for advanced drama. I got in, shocker. And then, a bunch of my friends just started. They introduced me to the community theater, which my first production was Peter Pan, and from then on, I just loved the community and all my friends, and I stuck with it all throughout high school.
So I actually saw you guys did Beauty and the Beast, and then I was like, oh, that looks fun. And I was a big fan. And then I already knew like a few people in there. So I was just like, okay, I'll sign up for the next show. And then I just kept doing it as long as I could.
So I started with City of Temecula in 7th grade. So that was 2014. I just saw an ad in the paper, and I had done theater before then with a different company that I was talking about, and that sounded shady. It's not. It's just a different company. I took a break, and I was doing theater at a different middle school, and then I wanted to get back into the city program, and it was Cinderella. That was my first show, and yeah, then I just kept going on there, and I think my last show was like my sophomore year of high school, and then I moved. Yeah, I think that was a good, that's 5 years, almost 5 years. So.
Well, thank you everyone for sharing your little intros and introductions to City of Temecula Youth Musical Theater. And before we get going, we wanted to share a video from our good friend Lucas Hoyos Haynes, who unfortunately wasn't able to join us today. So here he is sharing how he got started with us all and his favorite City of Temecula Youth Musical Theater moment.
Hi everyone, so sorry that I missed the call, but I was asked to just make a quick little short video and explain how I got my start with City of Temecula Theater and kind of why we started. So I was with the City of Temecula Youth Musical Theater for around, I want to say 4 years, maybe closer to 3, or on the lower end of 4 years. And I got started because I have extended family who's part of the CYT program down in San Diego, and they thought that my sister and I would love performing, and they ended up being right. I did 7 shows through the City of Temecula program, and I think my favorite memory is probably being able to collaborate with everyone and see our finished product after we put so much time into these dance numbers. Things like specifically Step in Time through Mary Poppins, or Carrying the Banner in Newsies. Just these numbers that we worked really hard on finally come together after months of work and you know, practicing at home and hours of practicing and making sure that this all goes right. And I really miss the program, and thank you guys so much for asking me to make a little video. Hopefully we all get to see each other and perform again soon, go see live shows again, and hopefully that comes sooner than later. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Lucas. We're so sad you weren't able to join us today, but you're here with us in memory. We love you, and we hope to see you soon. So moving forward, Gabby and Sean, this next question is for you. You two have played characters with our youth musical theater program that required a little more research in terms of an accent, age, and time period, or in Sean's case, a physical inability. And Gabby, for example, in the role of Mrs. Peterson with her accent, which I'm sure she'll get into. With that being said, what was the process like for each of you to develop those characters on stage?
Yeah, well, the first show, we're going back to sort of the shows I did before 13, which was my first of the roles you've described. In my opinion, the roles I played beforehand were kind of very generic, like little boys, like next door, obviously because I was like 12. But then when we did 13 back in like summer 2017, I was cast as the role of Archie, which is, I would say, like the comic relief of the show, and is also on crutches, like on 2 little like armband crutches throughout the entire show. And boy, did I have a time doing that role. I mean, I'm gonna be honest, I didn't do a lot of research, like hard research going into that role. I kind of learned just like in rehearsal, just walking with them and just like kind of creating that illusion. And then when I did Newsies, like 2 years later, when I was Crutchy in that show, I mean, it was a different crutch, obviously, because it's more of the like typical crutch that's like underneath your armpit. And also I only had to change the way I walked on one foot as opposed to literally like kind of dragging both of my legs on 13. Yeah, it provided like a really unique physical challenge I've never faced as an actor before. And an inside joke in my family is that I always played crippled boys. So
Yes. So for the accent of Mrs. Peterson, it's like, I can't remember if it was supposed to be like New Jersey, New York. I think I did more of like a New York style just because I have family over there. So it was something that I always kind of grew up around. So when I auditioned with it, I kind of already had the accent down. But what I wanted to perfect was, you know, more of like the elements of like overprotective mother, which is obviously something I don't have experience with. But luckily,
You're telling me at 17 you didn't know how to be like a middle-aged mom? Wow, unprofessional.
Contrary to popular belief, I did not.
Wow.
Didn't go down that route. But, you know, I pulled a lot of elements from, you know, Christopher's mom, Allie, which was actually really helpful and very fun because, you know, I've always had like a very close relationship with Christopher. We kind of bully each other in like a brother-sister way. So it was fun to kind of expand that into like, okay, I'm his mom. Like I'm gonna be Mama Bear, protect him against anyone, any woman. I can only be the only woman in his life. So yeah, it was such a fun role to play.
Awesome. Well, thank you, you two.
Yes, and I very much enjoyed watching you play that. Gabby will never let me live, or I will never let her live down a specific moment of that show.
I know exactly what you're gonna say, and that was my least favorite part, I think.
Moana, what was it?
In all of theater.
She walked out and she said, "Who runs the world? Girls. We run this, mother." And I just thought that was so funny because she hated that. And it didn't like fit in with in terms of the realm of the show, but I just thought everything that you did with that character was so funny but like so relatable. So you didn't steer too far out of the realm of the storyline, despite some of
And what makes me laugh, those little kitten heels they had you in. Like the tiniest, like, you know, it's like the age of that woman is like, I'm old, so I can't walk in heels, but you bet I'm gonna still be wearing heels.
100.
And the tiniest little heels with your little walk, that was so
Yes.
funny. And
Everyone called me the Velociraptor because one of, you know, the mannerisms that I created for that character was just like a, you know,
right,
like she's like
yeah,
almost like she's too good to like even have her hands
Right.
by her side. Like she's
right.
not gonna
And
touch anything.
yeah. And going back to Sean, you know, I remember in 13 when you were in those arm things, I remember thinking, like, I remember when you're doing callbacks and stuff like that, obviously during that point you're like, I want any role. But like the physicalness of it and like doing dance, I feel like that doesn't even compare to that because you have to literally forget everything your body is done naturally and then to drag your feet literally. But I loved when like there was moments in the show where like you just started walking again, like for choreographic reasons that were like, we're gonna kind of break that wall a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm gonna stand. Like those were awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it was a struggle, especially learning at the beginning how to, you know, forget literally, how you said, forget literally everything I've learned about walking and moving as a human for my entire life. And I mean, like you said, again, like we did have to have moments where I just like kind of broke that physicality to get me from one side of the stage to another in a timely manner. But I mean, at some point during that show, it kind of just like became part of my body, like me dragging my legs and just like losing balance at just random moments throughout the day, like just became a normal thing, like during the run of the show when I just be like walking backstage and stuff, as well as just in my life after the show. And it happened again with Newsies, only it was like a little more disorienting because I was only on one leg throughout the entire show.
Yeah, and it must have felt nice to finally at the end do it, what was it, Brand New You? And
Yeah, I
be
got
like,
yeah,
goodbye.
I got
Like,
to
I can
drop
run.
those things at
Yeah,
the end
right,
of Brand New
right.
You. Although, one thing I do have to say about the crutches in 13 was that I was really glad that we got to like build a lot more like comedic moments that were like original to our production through the use of like the crutches that at least for me, for the crutches that we had. Like I remember a gag that I just like did one day and I just started doing it every time because no one told me to stop, was when I entered the movie theater scene at the beginning of Act 2 and I said a line towards Christopher, who played Evan, like something like I don't know what I said, but I just put my butt on the seat and then just like slid into it as it like opened. And I felt like so cool doing it.
Because he wouldn't be able to like get himself up, so you just slowly stood.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And I'm sure everybody can speak to this or has like a specific moment, but those moments were probably one of my favorite parts of working with this specific theater company was our freedoms to just
Oh yeah, Stuart was just like, sure.
That I'm in. Because what was the animal faith? Or I'm sure Boston and Gabby, you know this because you were in the show. I don't know if it started in Beauty and the Beast, but there was an animal that we just incorporated. Was it a squirrel?
It was the duck, I think.
It was a dog.
Oh no, it was a squirrel. It was a squirrel that was on the set. Yes, remember that?
And then we ended up putting it in every single.
It was like stapled on everything. Yes,
So
it, like just
like the little aspects that we could bring that were
just the
original.
jokes and the stupidness of it. Like Stuart would just be like, sure. Yeah, remember? Yeah, the squirrel. I thought you were talking about the duck that Faith threw. We'll talk about that later.
That was you, right? Boston and Faith. That was you too. Like when you were shooting.
Yeah, like Faith would, and then we added in, speaking of like little improv moments like that, there was like a point in the music where it went too long, and so me and Faith would just like stand there, and then like Faith would squeeze, because it was like a dog toy.
It was a dog.
Yeah, and she would squeeze it.
That was a duck, and there would be points where like the gunshot would go off, but then the music took too long, so I would just like squeeze the dog toy, and I'd be like, it's still alive.
I think that's somewhere on YouTube. I think it is on YouTube. We can insert it. I think it is. I'm not kidding. It's on YouTube.
I find
Moana
it.
Cut.
The inventor's daughter. She's the one, the lucky girl I'm going to marry. The most beautiful girl in town. That makes her the best. And don't I deserve the best?
Of course you do. Hey, Gaston.
What? Right from the moment when I met her, saw her, I said she's gorgeous and I fell.
Okay, well, I thoroughly enjoyed the roles that we just talked about for you guys, and I'm glad I got to hear your guys' side of the development of those characters. But now moving on to Faith and Cole, you two have done multiple roles in one show, which is actually a lot harder than a lot of people think. So whether you guys have been double cast or played 3 characters in one show, what would you do to differentiate those said characters, as well as manage your time backstage, whether that be certain mannerisms, way you speak, way you move, stuff like that?
Speaking of like managing time backstage, I remember during Mary Poppins, I was like, especially that show, that was pretty hard because my costume for Neelius, hated that costume. Literally, like the worst costume is like, what was it? Like, what is it called? Like a morph suit?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think it's the one that goes all the way up.
it was like so hard to get on. And like I'd have like, sometimes it had like very little time to like change into it. So I'd be like struggling backstage trying to put that on. Then I have to put on like a skirt over it because if it didn't have the skirt, some things would show that I did not want to show. I was like, because I remember putting on the costume for the first time and being like, we're gonna have something over this, right? Like, but
I remember you wearing that because then you had the little head thing
Brutal.
and those bangs were still out. He said
my
the
hair
bangs are
was
gonna be
like,
out.
my hair was like pretty grown out during that show, so it was just like sticking out. And but like the like changing backstage was just like a whole hectic kind of thing, especially with that costume. It was a
And
mess.
especially with the amount of people, because our shows obviously had a lot of people. So trying to get through all the little kids or just everybody else and being like, I have somewhere to be, I need to change out of this costume, please let me do it.
Actually, didn't we start putting like some caps on like how many people were like in the show?
I think they did with some shows. Yeah.
Yeah, I think just recently though with Wizard, obviously because of Miss Pandemic, that was like the first time ever short timey that I think it's like 50 kids total, the
Oh my
whole
God.
thing, and they did 2 casts, so there's 25 people in 2 casts. I'm like, I wish that was us. We were like 15 with like 3-year-olds being like, get out of my way.
Yeah, I remember.
See people.
I remember just like it was just like a normal thing for every production. Like it was just a given that we would have to, for any quick change, any like transition from one side of the stage to another, there'd be like a bridge of little itty bitty kids to cross through. Yeah.
That's
And I
weird.
think-
It's like, because it's just bringing up like so many things that I like had frustrations with that show, but that was like still like one of my favorites out of the ones that we done. So
Going back to the multiple characters thing, I know a lot of people like don't like it when there's more characters in a show or like the changing and blah blah, like kind of what Cole was saying. But honestly, I thought it was so much more fun to do more characters because not only can you like change things up for each character, but you can like, I don't know how to word it. Like, for example, if I would go out and for Fiddler on the Roof, I was a dead old grandma and I was just like doing my cripple thing and doing my little Jewish thing. And then all of a sudden I would just be like a village lady and I could just do whatever. And I'm like, it's me, the villager. I just thought it was so fun to just change different things up, like as the show goes. And that's also another thing, like we were saying earlier for the theater company, that she would kind of like have our freedom to change it up, which I really, really enjoyed. Which with sometimes, like if you're playing one character, you're like, I think I just need to keep it this way. But
Right.
I really enjoyed doing the different character things. Backstage is a whole nother story.
Do you have any like any specific horror stories of like managing that and like getting through everybody? Because I think we've all been there in terms of like just sorry about it, shoving like 4-year-olds out of the way and you're like, I gotta get where I'm gonna get born.
There are so many. I literally can't think of one. Like
Yeah,
it's just
it's
the
rough
amount of
back there.
4-year-olds you have to accidentally push out of the way is ridiculous.
I think it's so funny because anybody who would watch this, they would think 50 is a huge number. They're like, you had 50
Mom,
people
no.
in Little Mermaid?
Nope.
I'm like, baby, that was just our fish.
We got up to like 150. I think like 150 was like what I remember. I don't know what was in Poppins, but I remember like 150 being a number somewhere in there.
Mhm.
And then I remember the age change, and that's when they got smaller because they moved the age up to like 7 or so or 6. Because before then there was like 4 and 5-year-olds, like itty bitties, and so I think that's when the number started to change, and that's when it became a little more accessible. But I will say, Cole is backstage for this. Just, you know, I know you're helping with stage crew, but like 13, I could take a nap backstage. There was nobody, ma'am. It was literally just, I think there was literally what, 40 kids, maybe less than that, like 35,
Yeah, and they were all
40?
like they were all like
It was
11
12 and
above?
up, like 12 to 18.
Yeah.
But the majority, which is, we were usually, you know, pre 13, we were the minority in terms of like age group. Like it was like a handful of teenagers our age, and then it was all 5-year-olds. Then with 13, like the 14 to 17 age range was more of the majority. And so backstage for that was awesome because it like was just all of us. There was like no sets. It was just like all of us backstage hanging out. There was so much room. Didn't have to deal with no 4-year-olds. I love the 4-year-olds.
Yeah,
I
in
was about to say, like, even if they're watching this, or even if people who don't know us are watching this, those little kids did not come to play. I mean, some of them, but like for the most part, if you saw them dancing or singing, my first 2 examples in my head are like Scarlett Welsum,
Yes.
Scarlett and Olivia. Seeing those girls be tiny in Shrek, and then growing themselves to the parts
Now they're like 25 and have like 3 kids, and you're like, what? Like, I don't even have kids. It's awful. I hate looking back, seeing how old we are. It's depressing, but also it's a good time. I know that's what me and Moana wanted to do with this. We were really excited to bring you guys on and just talk about the stupidness, and but also the creativity we were allowed to have, like we're talking about. And you know, everyone's different perspective, because everyone's had their fair share of being in the ensemble or playing lead roles or playing, you know, supporting characters. And I think all of those, and I think when we're young, and I think now that we're all older, we understand when we're young, you're irritated because why did they get the lead? Whatever, this and that. But I think looking back now, you just appreciate what it was because you had the time of your life, and it was all worth it, no matter what role you were. Because like Faith said, Stuart had you in like 5 different roles, even if you weren't a lead, or, you know, when you were a lead, you were still busy doing other things, but then you had your ensemble friends to back you up and support you. And I think looking back as a younger kid, you're just jealous and bitter or whatever it is because of casting or whatever. But now I feel like we all look back at it and we're just appreciative that that even happened, and that we were like, and it makes me sad thinking now for kids, you know, that were our age in the pandemic, they're like missing out on all that like amazing time to grow, and they're missing out on the drama, which is important. They're missing out on all the gossip, and you know what I mean, like it really builds your character. And I do think we're just a bunch of oldies talking about our prime, but like it's true. We're, you know, we were just kids, like we loved each other and we hated each other too, you know, and that's just the nature.
We all said
we all said
especially you we said gotta go, especially you, we hated you, gotta go.
Well, it was mutual, so.
Well, I mean, you guys are right. It really did feel like this big, like I can just account it to just like a big playground that we all got to just like play and create and just like be with each other. And it was just like this surreal experience that I'm just grateful for, like every day that I get to still do this and create with my friends, like what we do on the theater project.
I think
the amount of times. Oh, go ahead, Gabby.
So sorry. I just think it's absolutely insane because I still to this day remember going to Sean's 11th birthday party above
gotta go, bye.
11th birthday party.
That's
I was
insane.
in 8th grade. I'm almost done with college now.
I'm turning 18 in June.
I'm turning 21 this year. I just think it is the craziest, most special thing that like all of us, like we have no reason to know each other other than theater, because like we all went to Great Oak, but literally like 8,000 kids go there. So I probably wouldn't have met you. And so it's just so beautiful to me, the fact that like community theater is what brought us together, and like
Right.
we were just so little, like doing these things, like to be a part of something bigger than ourselves. And it was just so like, you guys are a part of my childhood. I love you all. And like, no matter where we go, like if we choose different careers inside theater, outside theater, like you guys are always going to be a part of my childhood. And that's so special to me.
She said just my childhood though, not my adulthood.
Just my childhood.
My childhood, get out of my adulthood.
Right.
It is a new year.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, no matter how many times we were shushed backstage, like probably millions of times, it was all worth it. Like the amount of times we've been yelled at for, you know,
or yelled at each other. Or,
yes, all of it. It was just so fun though.
Right.
100%. And I have one last thing to say before we move on to our next segment. But I was talking to Gabby on the phone a couple days ago. We were just kind of talking about this episode and how we were all coming together. And even though some of the time we were always at each other's necks, or we were like, I hate that person right now, like Boston was also saying earlier, it definitely attributed to our growth, because even if we loved each other or we were at each other's throats, either or of those aspects helped us grow, either as a person or a performer. Because I know there were definitely a ton of performers before I got there, when I was definitely tone deaf, who I looked up to. And after but I remember I looked up to them, but even though I know I shouldn't have thought this at the time, but I was like, why am I in the ensemble? I watched the stuff back and I'm like, that's why I'm in the ensemble. But it also made me want to work harder, because it made me want to be, I don't know, not like that person, but get better so that I
see what they're doing and, you know, be in the same likeness of them.
Or same on the other aspect, where it was just like, I don't know. But that kind of thing, where whether it was bad or good interactions that we had, it always made us grow as people and performers, which I absolutely love. And the fact that I don't really talk to Faith that much. I mean, we Snapchat and text sometimes, but even the fact that if we don't go talking for a while, I don't feel awkward to text any of you.
No, we're all like family at heart. Mm-hmm. And like that's what's so funny, and this is all to the Stewart's degree, that like we were so lucky to be there at the right time with the right group, you know. And there was like obviously a group before us, before we came, and we were just itty bitties, like Lizzie Henson and Hannah Mitchell and all that kind of group. Was it the Lundquists, right? Like that whole batch of group. And then I'm sure they got a similar experience where it's like, you're just a big family. And it's what Moana said, it like, I don't go talking to some people for long stretches of time. And then even now, it's like, we're all just being goofy and talking. And like, even before we got started today, you know what I mean? Like, we're all just, we all feel safe with each other. And like,
even Amber was supposed to be here. I just called her mom and I FaceTimed her like 5 times, even though we haven't talked and like intimately so long, but I didn't feel, I felt weird maybe calling her mom, but I didn't feel weird to call her 5 times, you know?
Yeah.
So I don't think I've talked to Faith in like a year. And literally like a week ago, I was stalking my photos tagged on Instagram, and there was one from the Vale Ranch Middle School Peter Pan, and Faith played Tinkerbell. And I zoomed in on her face because she looked a little busted, I'm not gonna lie. And then I just sent it to her. That was the first time.
Even we're bullying each other now.
That was it.
We're 20 years old and now we're still bullying each other.
To be fair, I don't look.
Yeah, Moana, you can't talk. Moana looks like she came off the street.
I really can't say anything.
All right.
Child, like.
I think you are. Child. Oh my goodness.
And speaking of our worst moments, our bad moments, our funny moments, and our loving moments, I am really excited to play this next game and hear your guys' reasoning behind your answers, because we are going to be playing a game of Theatre Superlatives. So Boston and I will read off the superlative, and you all will hold up the name of who you would vote for, though the options are not only limited to this group, but this group in the second part of the series as well.
All right. Are we ready?
Get your cards ready.
Okay, get your cards ready. We have cards, people. We leveled up in season 2. Okay. First one is best laugh. I think Moana was the majority.
I mean,
Cole,
it's
do
pretty
you wanna-
unanimous.
Right. Cole, do you want to share your reasoning?
Sure. I mean, I just spend a lot of time with Moana, so like I feel like every time that like she starts laughing, I just end up laughing with her because she just
Her laugh's so contagious.
yeah, it's a contagious laugh. So like once she starts, I'm like, well.
Okay, the second one, cast clown.
Boston Dylan, Boston Dylan, Boston and Dylan, Dylan and Gabby, Dylan and Gabby, and I put Faith. Oh wow.
Okay.
I'll say why I put Faith. Faith is funny in all the ways, and I don't mean this as a read, in all the ways you don't think, because she will just say something, and like I will like we had a big theater with each other our sophomore year of high school, and you could not tell us we were not the funniest people on the planet. Like we were the funniest people. Okay. Next one, most likely to be late. Hold on, I'm looking for my
Oh.
answer.
Actually, no, I agree with you guys. Hold on.
Okay, so we got Cole, Moana.
Oh my gosh, there's so much to elaborate on Moana. But in the best way. Moana would literally be like an hour late and we'd call her and she's like, I'm down a well, guys. Like, I can't, like, I'm trying to climb out of the well. And we're like, Moana, like the weirdest situations she would describe, but they'd all be
Right.
true. So we'd be like, what? Yeah. So
It's like Moana has like a million things going on at the same time. Like I
True.
remember I was directing Spelling Bee with her, and there'd be some like Saturday rehearsals where we'd be going like pretty much all day, where we'd be like 2 hours in, we'd be like, huh, where's Moana? And then I'd give her a call and she'd be like, oh yeah, I have a rehearsal until 1 in, and then I have tech for this show at 3 going into 3 a.m. the following morning.
with volleyball.
I
with-
just put Cole
yeah.
because I think Cole would just show up with a Starbucks and like not say anything. And just be fine.
I feel like I'd be late because of Moana.
The next one is life of the party.
Okay, we have Iris, Boston, Michael, and Christopher. Ooh, that's a good one. Sean, why do you think Michael and Christopher?
I think like for the same reason that Gabby picked what was it, Boston and Faith for the last one, they just have like the most unique dynamic from each other, obviously because they've been friends for what seems like 80 years now, and they just have this back and forth and this like camaraderie with each other that's just like completely outside of our bubble, but it's just so entertaining to watch. And I would add Dylan in there too, like if I could add a third one, but mostly I would
When he's
put this
there.
one. Yeah, when he's there.
He's there. What about someone who had Iris? Since that was our.
Oh, I put Iris only because she can make anyone like feeling sad like instantly happy. Or when she walks into a room, like she really is just like lights up a room. Okay, moving on. We have most likely to be your boss. This one was pretty easy because he is. Okay, we have Sean, Christmas or Christopher, Moana, Boston, Sean, and Sean. Okay, well, me and Moana put Sean solely because he literally is our boss.
He's our boss. We're like,
Cole,
If you guys didn't pick it, I'd cancel your you're canceled.
right. Cole, why else do you think Sean?
I just think he's good at like putting stuff together and like leading, like I don't know the word for it, but like just like leading stuff and
I know what you
like
mean.
he's very like organized. So
biggest drama king and queen. Crown your royals, ladies.
So we have Faith and Boston, Gabby Dylan, Boston Cole, Boston Gabby, Iris Christopher, Boston and Cole Gabby. Why don't you elaborate? We're two men, but I can see us being drama king and queen. Gabby.
Well, I think I've only ever had beef with you and Cole. You, Boston, just because like you're the most annoying person in my life and we fight constantly. So I love you the most. And then Cole, I genuinely didn't like you at first. I didn't think that you were a kind person.
You were a stinky.
I didn't think he was kind. You know, he was.
But who's the king and who's the queen? That's the real question.
No, Boston, you were king in Cinderella, so let's keep it consistent.
True.
But
All
I
right.
love Cole. Disclaimer.
Moving on. This one should be easy. Director's pet. Christopher!
Yeah.
Moana, why don't you share? Why don't you share my Christopher?
Oh my gosh, director. I don't know. I think I'm gonna tap into something that he did all the time, which was, hey, sorry. You want me to do that again? Sorry. Because, oh my gosh, I love him so
He
much. He is such a
apologizes.
talented performer, but, and this isn't true for always, but at least at a specific point and for specific shows, it was all about Stuart's approval or our director's approval, which isn't
But
always
in the
a
best way
bad
possible.
thing. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's not necessarily a bad thing because
Right.
I feel like he's kind of a perfectionist, so that's not a bad thing. But that's the first.
We love you, Chris. Disclaimer, as much as
Disclaimer.
you...
This is at the beginning of the episode. We're
The
like,
disclaimer at the very beginning, it's just disclaimer. We love Christopher
At the very
Ramirez,
beginning of the episode.
we love him. Okay, so next one is loudest.
So you have Meredith and Iris, Moana and Iris, Moana, Faith, Boston, Iris, Moana, Iris, Moana. I
Okay.
just put Meredith and Iris because they're beltresses, so like that's why I didn't think of like loudest as obnoxious because that would be me then, but like as in terms of like belting, that's them. Gabby, why don't you share?
Yes. So I've known Faith since she was, I think, early middle school, and she was very hyper at many points of her life. And so, like, when we would get into these like moments of just like, you know, completely let loose, I feel like she would be the one that's like,
Next up, we have most likely to have no idea what's going on.
Take your time, Faith.
Moana, why don't you share why you never have an idea what's going on?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh gosh, I don't want to. Oh gosh, I'm not gonna say half of this because I do want to get hired again in theater, hopefully. I don't know. I just never pay attention, or I'm.
But you're so like school smart. Like that's where I think that would apply to like listening in class to like in theater. You know what I mean?
The thing is, I don't listen in class. Anybody who knows me knows I didn't
Oh,
go to
well.
school. I went into high school with all that knowledge, not all that knowledge, you know, or I just picked it up, or I studied outside on my own. Like I would read a book and I was like, okay, I got this. But if you caught me in a classroom, probably wasn't me. Did you want to go, Faith? Were you raising your hand?
Yeah, I just wanted to say something about you. Like, I love you, Moana, like, but you're like such the biggest oxymoron ever. Like, I don't understand how you do
You
it.
could just say
You're like,
moron. I mean, that would be.
no, that's the term though.
No,
No.
I know.
Like, okay, where you, I don't know how you did it because you would be like, oh, I don't know what's happening most of the time. But then it would get to tech week and you're like, come on, guys, like, get it together. And like, we're all doing it.
She just secretly knows what's happening the whole time.
Yeah, like, I don't know how you did that. But
Our next one is biggest flirt.
All right, we got Dylan and Michaela. Dylan, Michaela, Dylan, Boston.
I can't find.
And Moana looks like she's looking for one more. And Dylan. All right, why don't you share, Faith?
well, Dylan is such a strange soul. He came into the theater company, I'd say like,
Shirtless, probably.
yeah, a little bit after I feel like most of us came, but like a tiny bit after, like a show after. But as soon as he came, he was like, I'm here. Hey guys, like literally.
That's
And we were
funny.
like, who is this person? And then would just be like, listen, you're gonna know me. This is who I am. Like, I don't even know how to describe
agree.
it, but yeah, he was just very present and was like, hey, everyone's gonna pay attention.
Yeah, and I just said Michaela because Michaela's just like
The hottest
the
person I know.
sweetest and
She's sweet, yeah.
sexy.
She's literally the hottest person I know.
All right, next up we have best group leader.
Iris, Boston, Iris, Meredith, that's a good one. Iris and Iris. And Iris. Let's hear from Cole. We haven't heard from you in a hot minute, Cole.
I feel like Iris is like kind of like also what I said about Sean. Like she just likes to like take charge on stuff and like be on top of everything and have everything like like she would send like the
Well, where, why?
Yeah, in like the group chat, whenever we'd have a plan, she'd have like the who, when, where, why, like she'd have that like all planned out, and she was on top of her stuff.
100%. Next one is most likely to have their own reality TV show.
So we have Priya, Moana, Boston, Faith, Gabby Cole, Boston, Dylan, Boston, Moana, Christopher, Moana. Okay. I'll just say real quick, I think Priya would have like the coolest like name for it. I don't know what the name is, but the name would be cool.
Oh, for
like
sure.
Everything's coming up Priya or something.
Everything.
Like something fierce. All right, Sean, why don't you share?
I just want to see Boston, Moana, and Dylan live in a house together and have that caption on camera.
Best hair. Meredith, and Iris.
That's a good one too.
I mean, I think we can all agree Meredith got them blonde curls.
Guys, she's killing it.
Stunning. I'm glad we came to a group consensus, and Iris got that. Always got a slick pony. She said, "I'm a dance competition ready."
She's always ready. Okay, next one is funniest.
Yeah, Moana Cole, Boston, Moana, Faith, Boston, Faith.
I put Moana because I had the privilege of living with her, and I found every single thing she does is so funny. And then
It's
Cole,
grounded with humor, but not innately.
no, she never intends to be funny. It's just always funny. And then with Cole, I feel like he's very quiet, but then every once in a while he'll just slip in this snarky remark that just gets me. I love it.
Agreed. Most likely to get away with anything. This one with a particular person. So we have Dylan, and Christopher. And
Biggest diva.
I'm kidding myself too. All right, let it go.
I know everybody was talking about how we used to push little kids behind the show to get but when I started, I was that little kid. I think we were all that little kid. If you crossed Boston's path during Wizard of Oz or Seussical, if your legs weren't broken, then I don't think you passed him in the hallway. If he had to be somewhere on stage, he had to be somewhere on stage. And if you got in his way, collateral damage. That's all I got to say.
All right. Well, thank you for playing and reading most of our friends. That's what we do. That's what we're best at. But speaking of divas, but again, diva in the very best way possible. I think the biggest diva we have in our life. As everybody knows, you guys included, everyone watching, the theater project is dedicated to the late Brooke Morris, who spent her time and dedication choreographing City of Temecula youth musical theater productions, as well as touching all of our hearts. We all miss her dearly and wish her family nothing but love. Last year, at the untimely passing of Brooke, we were not all able to be together. Many of us were attending school or spread across the country, not being able to attend her service. Since Brooke was a role model in all of our lives, we wanted to allow this time and space to share our favorite memories with Brooke, as well as the impact she had on us all. And real quick, I want to hear you guys. I'll just say mine really quick so that I can get out of the way. I will say, speaking of diva moments like that with me, during physical, and this still sticks with me, she took me aside and was like, "You need to cut it out." And I was like, "What?" And she goes, "You're being a lot," and and being how I was, which you guys talked about. She said, "Your friends aren't gonna like you if you do that." And in my head, I was like, "What are you talking about, crazy lady?" I was like, that's not true. But it was so true. You guys are probably like, mm-hmm. But because then when I moved, there's people that acted like that. And I was like, I did not want to be their friend. And then I went back to Brooke, telling me that. And it's so true. And that's the one thing I think we can all agree on with Brooke. She was told how it was, which I think did us a great service at such a young age because we knew how to deal with it. And, me and Moana talked about the other day. You think I had a problem yelling at 4-year-olds? Brooke, she said, you're not doing your step ball change right. And you know what I mean? But in the best loving way possible, she would yell at you, then turn around and give you a hug and was the first person to comfort you when you cry. So I love you, Brooke. your on our hearts?
My favorite Brooke moment was during Little Mermaid. It was the double cast, and I was double casted as one of the princesses, and in that scene we just sang horribly, like so bad. And I always love that scene. And at the time during Tech Week, I was so sick. I literally would go on stage and my voice would be cracky and like so bad. And we just tried our best. And there was one day that I was so sick. And Brooke took me aside and I'm like, I do not have a lunch. And she was like, it's okay. And she gave me her fries. And to this day, that moment still sticks with me so much because I thought that was like the nicest thing ever. And it sounds so stupid, but like it was the thought that she was like, you're like sick, and she like stood down next to me and was like helping me, and I sat next to her in the crowd when I was so sick. And it's just, yeah, that really stuck with me because she was so helpful and I love her and miss her.
Yeah, so you touched a little bit on like how great Brooke is when people need her for comfort, but I think at the same time, she had such a good balance of like grounding people when they were like hysterical and just like crying, because there's a lot of moments in theater when people can get overly emotional or just, you know, like upset over small things. So she would always say this thing if someone was crying over something petty, like, there's no crying in baseball. And it was so funny to me every single time. And she was just a phenomenal woman. Love that gal.
Wow, you know, God, when we were told that we were going to be talking about Brooke today, I kind of froze because I didn't know what to say that could like suffice everything that Brooke did for all of us in just like a few sentences. But if I were going to pick just like any one specific thing about Brooke, I don't know about y'all, but I loved getting yelled at as a collective by Brooke. It was one of the most energizing things in the like. It was something where after you'd walk out of that rehearsal where Brooke just like had enough and just like yelled at all of us, it was like very energizing, but also very grounding, because it was like it kept us on base and on focus, not just for the dance that was at hand at that time, but also just for the show in general. And I think Brooke kind of is partly responsible for why we're all such close friends today, like why we're just like this big family today. Like Brooke really like kept us together and was that like paternal figure for all of us when we would go over there, you know, like 2 times a week.
So I remember there was like this like daughter-father dance at like an elementary school, and like Brooke was like gonna teach them how to slow dance, and then she was like, oh, do you want to be my partner? Do you want to like come help me out for the night? So like I was like, yeah, of course. So I just like the whole night was just like really fun because I just got to spend like one-on-one time with Brooke and like get to know her, and like I heard like a bunch of stories from her of like when she was in high school and stuff. And so yeah, that's just like a night I won't forget because I just like enjoy being close to her and like talking and like teaching dances to little kids and stuff. And another thing I remember was like leading up to Newsies, like how excited she was to do that show, because like that was like her dream show to like choreograph. So I'm so glad I was able to like be in that show and like help her like live out that dream for her. So yeah.
Me and Gabby were talking about, especially when it all happened, how we were all so separated. And I know, at least for the people I talked to, like me, Gabby, Cole, even you, Boston, and a couple of other people, we just felt it was very, I don't know, we felt very disconnected in a way and dissociated super hard because we weren't there to actually face it. And us two were on the other side of the country.
Right.
So dealing with it in that aspect. And I even know me and Gabby, we walked up, we took a walk one night. We were having like a thoughtful, deep kind of walk, and we were sitting at the top of, I think it was Morgan Hill Park, one of those parks up there, and we were sitting out looking over the city, and we were just like, I think it's so crazy because I still feel like Brooke is out there somewhere doing backflips in her 10-inch heels. And so even though I didn't know her very long, and there are people who knew her even longer than me, the fact that she still had that impact, that I still feel her, and her presence here, even though she's not, is something kind of sad, but it's definitely like I wouldn't change that feeling because I think
Yeah.
that would be a lot worse off. But yeah, that was my.
And I think moving forward, anytime I know I do, anytime I dance, Brooke's always like the first thing that pops in my head. And ironically, the day after she passed, I dance class that day, and I like, it was just, I don't know, it felt so different, but different in kind of the best way, because I think moving forward, we're all faced with having to lose someone that we were all so close with at such a young age, so I think it was so beautiful that we were all able to even connect from across the country. And I wished her family nothing but love. I'm sure we all do. And our son Jet, we love you, Jet.
Love you,
You're
Jet.
probably not watching, but we love you. Your mom was the most kick-ass sexy woman ever, with body glitter, who never sweated. She didn't sweat. Nope, she never sweat. But we love you, Brooke. We miss you, and this whole thing is for you. We love you.
Yeah. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today. But before we go, we want to give a huge, huge shout out to Jennifer Stewart. Without her, this group as well as the next would not be here. And just like Brooke, she has taught us so much and allowed us to have a safe space to create theater. And above all else, she gave us wonderful friendships and memories that we will absolutely never forget. And with that being said, make sure to tune in on January 28th for part 2 of the Theater Friends series with a new batch of alumni. And thank you to Sean Burnett, Faith Van Way, Gabby Ferreras, Cole Alcaster, and Lucas Oyos Haynes for sharing your insight and experiences today. We greatly appreciate it, and we will see you all soon.